And you mentioned that people can kind of have this feeling of, well, who am I asking? Or like that the love is some kind of interpersonal dynamic, but you've written about how maybe it's hard to pin down, but it's more like a verb. It's like an attitude or an orientation to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
world, right? That you're not looking for a love, like romantic love or friendship. It's just this thing
Yeah.
you're radiating.
Yeah, I wrote a book called Real Love, and when I was first submitting it to different publishers, an editor somewhere said, "Well, the love market is saturated," and what they meant was the romantic relationship market. You know, how to find a relationship, how to keep a relationship, how to end a relationship. That's what they were referring to, but that's not what I mean. And I think, oddly enough, it's encapsulated best in this line that was in a movie that came out about 12 years ago or something. The movie is called Dan in Real Life. And one of the characters in that movie said, "Love is not a feeling, it's an ability." And I love that. Of course, it is a feeling as well, and the feeling we may long for. But if we think of it as a feeling, it's almost like a commodity. And very often, then we think it's in the hands of someone else to bestow upon us or take away from us. And if they take it away from us, we're bereft. We have nothing. So I'd often get the image of like a delivery person standing at my doorstep with that package of love, looking down at the address and saying, "Nah, I think I'll go somewhere else." And I go, "Wait a minute," then I have nothing. But if it's an ability, it's inside me. And as a play on words, it's also a responsibility. It's mine to cultivate, to strengthen, to nurture. And certainly others bring it forth or inspire it or threaten it. But ultimately it is mine. And that's very much the sense of mettā or loving kindness. It's a capacity within. And it's powerful. It's not like gooey, because it actually does reflect a truth of interconnection, that our lives are intertwined. It doesn't mean you like somebody. It also doesn't mean you're going to spend time with them. Like, let's have dinner together, But within, there's not such a rigid, ossified sense of self and other and us and them. We realize, oh yeah, it's different than that. Reality is different than that.
Yeah. And you mentioned that it's powerful, and the kind of love that we're talking about. And I absolutely agree. In my personal experience, there's this, you also write about love being the opposite of fear. And when it comes to like trauma and living in states of shutting off and closing down, orienting towards love really does feel like the axis one needs to be on in order to heal trauma.
Yeah, I think that's true. And it's also, I think one of the main characteristics of trauma is a sense of fragmentation. It's like something has been shattered, even if it's a slow shattering. We might associate trauma with what they call, I guess, in the field, shock trauma, like a car accident or gun violence, in our lives, something like that. But there's also the trauma of poverty, which is a kind of slow, chronic wearing away, at one sense of who we are and what we're capable of. And so no matter where it's rooted, I think there's a sense of fragmentation. And one of the characteristics of cultivating loving kindness as a kind of cohesion of our being. It's like, if that is my responsibility, if that is my capacity, then I also feel like, well, if I want love to be in a conversation, maybe I have to be the one to bring it forth. If I want love to be in an encounter, maybe I have to be the one to make sure it's in the room. And that gives me like a kind of North Star. It's a sense of meaning to guide my life by. And that is very important.
Right. And the idea of it being a North Star, I think, is important, because it's something that's going on inside yourself subjectively, right? But once you see the wisdom of living by it, it kind of forces change in the world. If you're living in that situation that's stressful and making you feel traumatized, if you want to be open and loving, well, you're going to very quickly see where it's safe to do that and where it's not, and you actually have to then make change in your life, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true, and I don't think we ever want to lose discernment. Sometimes people get confused about that, and they think it's part of the feeling like you're going to end up just this sort of puddle of, goofy emotionality, without clarity and without strength, and it's just not true. We always want discernment, and that's why I try to make a point of saying it doesn't mean you're going to spend any time with this person.
Right.
The cultivation of loving kindness doesn't necessarily mean, all's forgiven and forgotten. Let's just hang out. It's not like that. But you can be free. You can be so much more free, perhaps, than you feel.